Hi everyone, this is Radha Sharma and I'm working as a freelancer artist and full time I'm working with Victoria's Secret. So I'd like to give a quick introduction about my painting stuff. Today I'll be showing the watercolor tutorial to you of Radha Krishna, and apart from that I work with acrylic medium as well as recently I'm experimenting with the colored pencils. So I'm really excited to show this tutorial with you and I would love to see the end results by the end. And towards the end of this video I'll also showcase some of my acrylic artwork as well as colored pencil work. And lastly I would like to give a huge thanks, a token of thanks to Artpool for giving me this opportunity to showcase my talent with you and share some of my skill set with you. So let's enjoy the tutorial and please share your work with me. Thanks, bye bye.
Let's begin to create this beautiful painting step by step. First step is, let's draw an outline of Radha Krishna as shown in the video. I always prefer to start with the face because it gives the actual proportions of the entire body. So let's quickly finish up this sketch. Next on the body I am drawing the hands and the chest, as you can see on the screen. So we are almost done with the sketch of Krishna and starting with the sketch of Radha now. We are almost done with the sketching, and next we will be starting with the color part. Features, I'm just drawing it roughly. I would be correcting it while doing the color. So here's the final sketch. So I'm using brush size 2, 4 and 6 for this painting, and one of my brush pens. My palette contains burnt sienna, orange, yellow and cardamom yellow. So for the background I'm first using orange and yellow, and later on I'll be adding the cardamom yellow and burnt sienna a little bit. You will see in the video further. So one quick tip, I will suggest you to start with the background, and please make sure that you are not crossing the outlines of the figure. Just work with the background first. As you can see in this video, I'm doing it part by part, not everything at once. And I'm using a little dry brush for making the lines, very less water because I want that texture in the background. Burnt sienna, I'm using it last to make the lines, and again I'm repeating, make sure that the brush is little dry. Now let's finish up the background quickly. As you can see, the matkis which I have drawn is already covered with the color, but don't worry about it because still little outline, light outline will be visible, which we can use to create our matkis at the end. Now I'm starting with the skin of Krishna. So before that I have added the entire skin with the water,
And I've started using blue with a very light shade. Please remember in watercolors that we first create the lighter shade followed by the darker shades. While the color is getting dry, let's work on the pagdi. So once the light color is dry, as you can see in the video, now I am using one shade darker. You can use a dry brush to lift the excessive colors. So we need to make sure one thing, that the first layer has to be little wet. If it's completely dry, the color won't get blend easily. So in that case, you can just add little water before adding the another shade. Now the third layer will be the darkest one, so I'm just doing the highlights. Mostly highlights, as you can see, I'm doing in the outlines, which is near the garland or the uh, just the corners, as you can see. Now let's quickly finish up the skin. For face, I'm making sure that I'm not covering up the eyes, because eyes I want it to be in lighter shades. But yeah, lips and nose you can cover, because that also will be blue in color. So depending upon the size of the painting you're creating, I will suggest you to use the smallest brush. For example, here I'm using brush size 2 for creating the figurines, as the size of my paper is A5. But still, even if you're working in A4 size, I'll suggest you to use brush size 2 only for the skin. Now let's start with the matkis. I'm using burnt sienna as the first layer, because matkis are obviously dark shade. So if you remember in the beginning, I told there is a slight outline which will be visible of matkis. I'm using the same. Now that my background is dry, I'm using another pattern, just drawing some patterns in the background, as you can see, using brush size 2, just to give it that texture look in the background. Let's just quickly finish up the background. I'm just drawing some random patterns for the leaves and the swirls, as you can see. However, you can change the background as per your requirement, but make sure that it's little lighter shade. Now I just want to first finish the garland, so I've used the yellow color first and giving little highlight with the cardamom yellow. Now let's start with the Radhaji. So I'm using the orange color with more water in it, just to keep the shade very lighter, as you can see. And then later I have added little burnt sienna, again more water. And in order to remove the excessive color, I have given you one tip of using the dry brush to lift up the color. You can even use the tissue paper to lift up the excessive color, but make sure that the sheet is wet. I want to keep her dress in the combination of blue, red and orange. So while it's getting dried, let's do pagdi of Krishna. So I've just started with the vermilion red and then adding some orange just for the effect, as you can see in my video. While it's getting dried, let's add few more elements in our background near the matki. And let's start with the rose petals now. I'm using the burnt sienna and the orange color in order to make it. Let's just quickly make the first layer, as you can see. I'm drawing the straight lines because I want that effect in my petals. Let's quickly finish this layer now. Start with the second one. Now I'm using the darkest shade of burnt sienna in order to fill the outer layer of these petals, as you can see.
You can also add little red as well to give that effect. While it's getting dried, let's work on the other part of the painting. First, let's start working on the garland. So now I'm adding little red shade along with the yellow shade, and I'm using red shade wherever it is needed in the entire painting. You can just follow the steps where to use red and add it. I prefer to make the lips red because it looks really nice. You can even use pink. I'm using another layer of the orange color. I want to keep the dress of Radha as orange and red. So I'm just adding another layer now. Let's start with the Mopunk. So I've made the very first layer very light blue, as you can see. While it's getting dried, let's draw the fluid. I've covered it with cadmium yellow, the first layer. And while these are getting dry, I'm using the black colored pencil in order to make the facial features as well as the hair. You can even use the black watercolor as well, but I prefer pencil or pen. That gives the better clarity and you can work in detail. Let's finish up all the portions in the painting containing black and the darker shades. The hair, brows and the eyes. We are almost done with the darker shade. Now I'm giving the shade to the petals with the black, and I will suggest to do it with the black colored pencil because it gives really good look in the painting. And finally I'm giving the some highlights near the hands in the corners. As you can see, it's really nice. And eyes I'm making with the pen, the kajal and everything, because it's very minute and the sheet is small, and I would recommend to use pen only as it gives much more clarity. And I'm using the burnt sienna pencil in order to give the highlights, the darkest area. And this is a fine liner 0.05. Now I'm just using yellow color for the remaining dress of Radhaji. And finally at last I'll be using the white pen to give all the highlights, as you can see, and adding the green color in the garland. I'll request you all to just follow the steps for completing. Now at last I'm using the colored pencils instead of watercolors because these are smaller areas and our brush sizes too. If you are having a miniature brush, you are most welcome to use the watercolors. But again, as I said, I'll suggest you to use the colored pencils and pen for these features. It gives much more better look. Let's quickly give the finishing and we are almost done with the painting. So I'm giving a couple of highlights with a black pen, black gel pen. You can even use a dot pen. So lastly we'll work on the Morpunk, and I'm quickly giving some of the highlights with the white pen. You can even use white acrylic or white watercolor. White watercolor may not work, acrylic will work, but use a very thin brush to give those highlights. But again, I'll suggest you to use white pen. It's very easy and it gives a very neat look in the painting. This white pen what I'm using was cost around 60 and 65 bucks. You can get it at any stationery shop. I'm almost done with the white highlights. Then I'll be working on the Morpunk. I'll start with the green pencil, and I had already made the base blue, and now I'm using a little purple. I'm just drawing the straight lines in the mode bunk, and now I'm using the white pen for the highlights, and again purple to make that small circle, and white for the highlight. You can add another color as well. So I think we're done with the painting. Thank you so much for watching.